Starting long before 1902, the town of Weymouth was governed by constables. As time would go on, there was an identified need for a police department. In 1902, they appointed the first police chief in Weymouth. So with that 1902 date is a trigger for the start of the Weymouth Police Department. People always say, why did you want to become a police officer? And and you think, well, there's people that'll go right to the job itself. I like the police cars, I like the power, I like the authority. That was not my primary goal. I just like helping people. It sounds corny, but it's true. Had a lot of great jobs that I enjoyed. Sought out jobs in canine and motorcycles and my own personal things that I enjoy, so it blended very well together. I stayed in uniform my entire career. There was a joke in the building that if I came in a suit, somebody was getting fired. I retired the start of 2020 and have been with the Weymouth Police Department for close to 38 years.
When I took over from Chief Grimes, I joke, I say I got handed the keys to a Cadillac and all I have to do is drive it, because in the 10 years that he was chief, we came such a long way. I spent my entire youth in the Summer Street area, Pond Meadow Park, played soccer most of my life in Weymouth and in high school, and I had 3 brothers. The only thing attaching us to home was the dinner bell that rang at 5, and if you weren't in the dinner table 15 minutes later, you'd hear about it. I went to college for a while, and during the Operation Desert Storm, I decided to join the Army. And when I got back, I took the civil service exam. I was hired, and I worked my way up the ranks. I've been here for about, I think this is my 28th year.
So in high school, I really knew I wanted to be a police officer, and I went to the Massachusetts State Police Student Trooper Academy. We went away for a whole week at the State Police Academy in New Braintree, and we did a trust game. And it was during one of those trust games where you're on a rope and you're supposed to go from one side to the other. So there's a person over here and a person over here, and the rope only goes so far. So it took teamwork to be able to complete that task. And I remember the other person on the other side was a little nervous, and we helped each other through. And after that moment, I knew I really wanted to go into policing. I really wanted to help people. I was in the patrol division for about 5 years, and then my husband and I got pregnant and had my first child. When I was pregnant, I didn't really want to sit behind a desk and dispatch, and there's nothing wrong with dispatching, but I really wanted to try to do something for the community. I had was a very close relationship with my grandfather, Okie, and I recognized that we didn't have an elder affairs officer anymore. So I asked Chief Grimes if it'd be okay if I started to go and talk with the senior citizen community. It really was a great impact in something that the police department was missing. So during that time, I was able to show the chief how important it was to have a liaison between the police department and the community. I did that role from February 2015 until recently when I got promoted. I am currently the sergeant of the Community Outreach Division, which includes myself and 3 SROs, and those are the school resource officers. I'm a mother of 2 children, 2 dogs, a husband, and when I go home, I'm not, Officer Pompeo or Sergeant Pompeo. I'm mom, just Jen.
Weymouth is, in my memory, has always been a huge supporter of police and the police department. It really resonated when Sergeant Chesner was killed.
Line of duty deaths are thankfully not a common occurrence. Sadly, more common recently than before. The chief that started in 1902 left, I believe, around 1913. Chief Butler came in 13, and in 1915 he was hit and killed by a drunken driver. Now think back to 1915, there was probably about a 60-40 split between horse-drawn carriages and carts and whatnot in motor cars, or machines as they referred to them back in 1915, but he was run down by a drunken driver and killed. He's registered with the National Law Enforcement memorial as the first police officer killed by a drunken driver. And we had an officer, Michael P. Davey, that was killed tragically on August 24th, 2009, working a traffic control position, and was struck by a motorist. Sadly, was fatally injured. Tragic as that is, you would hope there was no intent to kill the officer in that. In this case, it didn't seem to be. It was an elderly operator that mistook the gas for the brake. Chesna's was cold-blooded, and it struck a nerve.
He was a lot of fun. He got into a lot of mischief.
It's a typical kid.
He was
Yeah.
born on the hottest day in April that record still stands,
Tax day, April 15th.
April 15th. He did well at Weymouth school system, and he went on to Northeastern, and
Yeah.
he then graduated as a CJ major, criminal justice, and it was at a time when there were not a lot of criminal justice jobs, and his goal in life was always to become a police officer. He said, the only way I'm ever going to do it is if I go in the service. So he one day came home and told me that he was thinking of signing up for the Army. And I said, well, knowing you as I do, I think you probably already have. And
Yeah.
he said, you're right, tell Dad. We worried about him being overseas so much. We hardly slept. We were like maniacs. And when he came home and was going on to Weymouth,
We just relaxed.
never.
We figured never anything.
He was our
happened in
Barney
Weymouth.
Fife.
You know, figured nothing would ever happen in Weymouth or something.
Being Eric, his words to me were, Mom, do you know anything about anything? And I said, anything like what? And he said, anything like, was there a shooting in Weymouth? And I said, I don't have any idea. I don't think so. Did Michael work last night? And I said, yeah, he did. But it's 8 o'clock, so his shift's over. I said to him, I told him what it was about and what Eric said and everything. And then 15 minutes maybe went by, and I looked out the window and I saw a state police car.
He was working the midnight to 8 shift. But this call came in for Michael as an erratic operator type call on Main Street. And it would later evolve into somewhat of a on-foot call where the operator left the vehicle after colliding with another one. Officer Chesna was having a dialogue with the individual. The individual was nearby, and as he moved towards the officer, the individual hurled a rock at the officer, struck him in the head, knocking him to the ground, and we believe rendering him unconscious. The individual retrieved his firearm and fired rounds into the officer on the ground.
It's like walking into a wall. Your life could change in 1 second. You just don't know.
When they did, in fact, encounter him, he was still holding the firearm. They ordered it dropped, and one of the officers on scene made the keen observation that the weapon was in lockback, And in gun terms, that means the slide is locked to the rear. So they took him to the ground and placed him in custody.
The town, the people.
Everybody.
Everybody.
They just put their arms around us in such a big way. It was like, I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember some of it because we were in shock.
I actually had taken some classes at Northeastern University with Mike. I remember him when he worked at the Beachcomber back in the day. So when that happened, it was life-changing for everyone on this department and everyone in this community.
Michael, by character, he was a great guy, perfect employee. You know, one of those guys you wish you could cookie cutter and get a dozen of them when you needed them.
He made us proud. You know, we're proud parents of him. Really, you know.
Chief Grimes led us through probably the worst time in the history of Weymouth Police. I'm forever grateful to Chief Grimes for that, and I know all of us are.
To see everyone come together, line up poles, along the route from Weymouth to Hanover with, black and blue stripes, and for everyone to come together, the outcry of support and love, it truly showed you how much this community really is, that we can take a tragedy and come together. And I think for that, that's always something that I'll never forget. I don't think anyone in this department will ever forget. One
of the most memorable moments was when the town had everyone up at the high school, and there was a lot of speakers, and it was pretty awesome to see the town come together. Like, that was like the Weymouth that I love.
It's been a journey that I would never wish on anybody, but it's also been a journey that was a huge eye-opener in the fact that there are so many good people out there.
Right.
So many wonderful, wonderful souls.
We're trying to get the bridge on Route 18 named after him, but it's going to be Sergeant Chestnut, first responders. Every ambulance that goes over, doctor, every police, fire, that's what we'd like to have, for everybody around.
I think Weymouth's a wonderful place. I don't think I'd find this anywhere else.